I want to introduce you to when I was still DJing, a young DJ that was coming through, and he was part of a new generation. He was like probably the first guy that really mastered turntablism as we know it now. I mean, I had a go and I got to a certain level, but this guy took it to a different level. He eventually ended up winning the World Mixing Championship in 1987, and he also had a top 3 single in 1990, I think it was, with a track called Hear the Drummer Get Wicked. And he's with us tonight. Look, I can't see him anywhere. I hope he's in the room. Is he there? Oh, there he is, Chad Jackson.
Easy.
I didn't notice your arm.
The bones are breaking.
What did you do to your arm? I didn't notice.
I've kind of got a bit of tendonitis in my old age. So I've got these straps on just to try and keep it warm for the proceedings tonight.
Ah, right.
So you want to work in a crossfade and age?
That's what they say.
The joints don't work quite as well at this age, you know.
Well, really good to have you here. I know you live up in, is it Slough you're living in now at the minute?
No, Denham, down south to the west of London.
Yeah, and you're lecturing, aren't you? You're at university.
Yeah, I'm lecturing in Guildford at the Academy of Contemporary Music. I lecture in music production, DJ skills, website design, and music culture and history, and specialise in dance music history as well.
Fantastic. And that all kind of stems back to a time where you're originally from St Helens.
Yeah.
And in the late 70s, you would have kind of come onto the club scene and been influenced by the whole kind of jazz funk movement. And Northern Soul.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting listening to the other guys. I mean, I tell you what, already it's been a fantastic day, and I really don't know what I can add to everything that's been said already, but I'll try. What Ewan said about how he kind of come about, very similar actually. I started off basically as a music fan and a dancer, as you know, because I used to actually go to a lot of these guys' clubs before I actually started DJing. So I started off collecting music and going to Northern Soul, all-nighters and stuff, and venues and the casino, etc., etc. So I kind of got into the Northern Soul thing. Started collecting records because I just had this passion for music, you know. It was just an absolute passion from when I was about, well, as far as I can remember, about 9 or 10 years old, you know. I basically just nicked my dad's whole record collection, hid it in my bedroom, you know, and started collecting records from then on. And so I just amassed loads and loads of records. I was totally into the music. As I said, started off in the Northern Soul scene, but I must admit, thinking back then, for us, it wasn't Northern Soul, it was just the music that was around at that time, which was dance music, which was great for dancing to, you know. It was all about, like a lot of things have been said today about the passion for the dancing and stuff. That's exactly where I was coming from, you know, an absolute passion. And I find it hard to believe how I went to so many venues, to be quite honest, so young, because I did start very, very young. I used to go to places like the Timepiece in Liverpool, and then onwards to places in Manchester like Rafters, etc., and obviously the casino from before. And thinking back, I kind of remember how I did it. I mean, I used to go to, for instance, the Timepiece in Liverpool. I used to travel there, get inside the club somehow, and then I wouldn't buy a drink all night. I'd go in the toilets and drink water out the tap, and that would be my drink for the night, you know. I'd be on the dance floor from the minute I got there till the minute I left, you know. And that was what my life was all about. It was just this passion for music. And the amassing of such a huge record collection after all that, because, you know, as I said, I was just collecting music, buying records, collecting music. That's all that mattered to me, you know. And it kind of almost still is that way. So I amassed this huge record collection. It was a case of, you know, I had to start thinking, well, it's starting to take over my bedroom at home, you know. And I was driving the family crazy. I mean, you know, I don't think they'll ever forgive me for kind of keeping them up half the night just with banging music coming out of my bedroom, you know. I must admit, if I'd have been my dad, I'd have been dead, you know. That'd have been it. I'd have been. But excuse me, I amassed all these records, and I obviously moved on to the DJing thing because it was, I suddenly had this huge collection, and it was like, well, I'm going to start kind of putting it to some use, you know, rather than just sitting in my bedroom on my own, playing records and kind of dancing in front of the mirror, you know. It was like, right, let's kind of move to the DJing thing, because that just naturally kind of swayed that way.
I mean, I remember the first time I heard of you, it was in Record Mirror. I mean, one of the main things for I mean, Blues and Soul was the main magazine that you had to read.
James Hamilton
had a column in Record Mirror, and it was very deep. It was the DJ column, and he had like all sorts of odds and ends, and in it, you know, I mean, I'd started mixing by this point, and I was at like Wigan Pier and Legend probably, and he said I had a letter from somebody called Chad who said there's another mixing DJ in the north of England apart from me, and I'm thinking, all the guys from Liverpool, all the DJs from Liverpool came to Wigan Pier on a Tuesday. It was like almost their night out, and I can remember I was saying to them, who's this guy Chad, you know, and they said, there he is. And it was like, Chad, he'd been coming in the club. You were regular on the dance floor. They just pointed to you on the dance floor. And I said to you, you know, I never knew that you DJ. And that's how I got to know you on that kind of level.
Yeah.
I think you were at Cagney's at the time.
I was DJing at Cagney's in Liverpool at the time. I mean, that was probably part of my problem with. I've always been a little bit of a loner, you know. So I've never really talked a lot about what I do, especially in the early days. It was almost like it was my thing, you know, because I went to a school that everybody else had kind of, you know, leather jacket, biker leather jackets, and they were all into rock music. And I used to walk around with this great big huge ghetto blaster, you know, like some kind of, at the time they all thought I was kind of a bit, you know, a bit mad, but I probably was. But that's just kind of, it was just, I just lived for music, man, you know?
Yeah, and I suppose where you were brought up in the area that you lived in as well, you know, that you were kind of isolated and you gravitated towards the black scene and what was going on.
Absolutely, I mean, it was just, I mean, there wasn't any kind of thought about it, it was just a natural thing. It was like, well, you know, the same things apply, you know, the music means so much, the passion's there, you know? And like you said about the dancing thing, I mean, I must admit, in these later years, I tend not to cut a rug quite as much as I used to. But the passion for that is still there. It's just some kind of, it's like eating food, man. It's like, you've got to have it. It's like the music and stuff. It's you just got to have, I couldn't live without it, personally, you know. I die very quickly without music.
So, from a DJing standpoint, you know, you built up a kind of reputation for yourself, and eventually you took over like the main residency at Wigan Pier. I was still doing the Tuesday and the Wednesday at Legend, but you took the Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and so that was like what was Wigan Pier like?
Absolutely, I must admit, I was like, I've been kind of working towards trying to get into what I classed more of the top echelon of clubs like Wigan Pier, Legend, etc., because obviously, you know, I wanted to start making a career of this, because I'd come to a situation where when I was at Cagney's in Liverpool, at the same time I was going to Elliot Clark's dance and drama school in Liverpool, and I was going to be an actor or a dancer or something like that, and I was paid for my course by doing the DJing at Cagney's. And basically the problem was that with the kind of drama dance course, you had to get in there about 7 in the morning, and you do 3 hours of limbering up, which was basically the most hideous, torturous kind of limbering up exercises you could ever dream of, and then spend the whole day there, and then go out at night DJing, and basically for a few months I was burning the candle kind of at both ends and in the middle, you know. Yeah. So it was one of those situations where I had to make a choice. I couldn't carry on with the drama school thing because I couldn't pay for it without the DJing. So the DJing kind of won, you know. I mean, I equally wanted to do both. Yeah. So there wasn't that kind of thing of, oh, I'll do DJ then, you know. So from then on, it was like, right, I have to make this a career, you know. So I kind of started getting hungry and wanted to move to better clubs and trying to move up the echelon, etc. And luckily, kind of got into, as you said, Wigan Pier. And that, I must admit, those were just amazing times. I mean, seeing yourself as well, going to the Tuesday nights just as a punter, you know. And obviously people like Hugh and Colin as well. I mean, I've always been a massive jazz fan. And I used to go to all these clubs that have been mentioned today. It's just taking me back so much. I used to go to places like Blackpool Mecca, etc. for the all days. Being in the jazz room, just dancing all day in the jazz room with a towel and not much else, you know. Those are special times, you know, because it just meant so much. I mean, some of the things that have been said today about there's possibly not as much passion nowadays. I think part of that is the culture we live in with the internet, etc. Everything's so readily accessible and so easily accessible nowadays, I think, that there isn't as much worth put on things, you know. It's almost like, for instance, if you're offered all the best sex in the world that you have ever had in your life with the most amazing people, blah, 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 and you can have that any time you want, you would soon get really kind of, you know, sex, oh great, not again, you know, you'd really get kind of bored with that, you know.
So things like an overdose and stuff.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it was always a special thing. I mean, those feelings all those years ago, it was always that thing of like, it's our thing, you know.
Yeah.
Other people don't understand because they just don't understand. It's our thing, you know.
Because it was
special.
It's kind of interesting as well because there's a difference on the like black and white with black kids. That it was the norm. That was the pop in a sense. You know, I mean, I was talking to somebody from New York and about all the music of the kind of late 70s, early 80s who listened to it on the radio, and for them, because radio was segregated, you know, that was their pop music and they had their own chart and everything. Whereas for white kids who are into this black scene, we were very much involved in a specialist underground movement, you know, and so, you know, like you're saying, there was a specialness about it. You knew you were part of something that was outside the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I think it had a greater, personally, I think it had a greater influence even than that, you know, with a lot of the lectures I do about the music history and culture and stuff, the kind of feelings that started there, with you saying about the mix of black and white, you know, I think even today a lot of people in the world can learn a lot from that, you know, because especially with all the stuff that's going on these days with Muslims, etc., and with the kind of general media frenzy and craziness, you know, which is almost creating kind of a segregated society again. Whereas through the things we experienced, that's always been a thing that's been very close to my heart personally, because apart from the fact of being into music and having a lot of black friends and partners, etc., it's just, I've never understood that, why people see colour and stuff. It's just never been an issue, you know. It's never ever been an issue. Why are people like that, you know? I've never really find it hard to understand. But with all this stuff recently, you know, that's going on, it almost makes you think, oh no, are we can't, all that good work that's been done, is it being kind of undone, you know? And have we got to try and do it up again and work, you know? I'll shut up.
No, it seems to be, that's on a cultural level, I think, you know, it always seems to go in cycles, and even if people, you know, even if there wasn't colour, people would find ways of discriminating against other people for that reason. Unfortunately, that's life, sadly.
Yeah.
But I mean, yes, you're right. I mean, one of the main things I remember, and it kind of goes on to like what's going to be happening a bit later with Street Machine and Broken Glass being in attendance, was that, you know, when I was working with Broken Glass and they did a street tour, that was one of the first things they did. They went round all the, you know, basically shopping, like St Helens, like Blackpool, places like that, all around the northwest. And as a white guy with a group of, you know, predominantly black kids, I was very aware that we were walking into an area where there was no black population at all. And if that would have been 12 months previous and a group of people coming from outside the area were walking into somebody else's patch, there would have been trouble. But what I saw was that they rolled out the lino and they got out the ghetto and they put this music on and they danced, and all of a sudden these young white kids came over and talked to them, and they were, what is the music you listen to, what's going on, and I was watching a cultural exchange, and I think that things like that did more for race relations in this country than anything. I mean, it was a very powerful period of time at the coming together of people.
Absolutely. I mean, I think music, I mean, the good old thing that people say, you know, music is the universal language. I mean, that is absolutely true, you know. It's one of the only things that really truly gets people of different cultures, races, creeds, etc. together on a kind of level playing field, you know. Everybody understands music. Everybody can kind of tap their fingers, you know, and stuff. So I think it's such an incredibly powerful thing. You know?
So you working at Wigan Pier, you obviously established yourself on a different level at this point, and your name became...
Yeah, I was young and hungry, and I got into the mixing thing kind of even before I started at Wigan Pier, before I met yourself. I'd started a BPM book.
Right.
I think this was about 78, 79.
Yeah, that's when James Hamilton was
absolutely. And I had this BPM book, and I used to buy loads of records and immediately BPM them, write in my book, and this book ended up kind of that thick, you know, with records, BPMs of records. And the reason I did that was because I was working at these clubs. I mean, some of the early clubs, I started off at some early clubs in St Helens, which just had normal belt drive turntables, and I was mixing at that time. Basically because all the DJs at that time, a lot of people probably remember, a lot of DJs actually talked on the mic in regular clubs. And I just couldn't be bothered with that because I kind of knew, as a dancer in a club by myself, you just want to go there to listen to the music. You don't want to listen to some DJ prattling on, you know? So I kind of started this BPM book to enable me to put records together on belt drive turntables at vaguely the same speed, so I could vaguely mix them into each other without having to have any varying speed or anything like that. So it was kind of, you know, a means to an end for me to actually sequence music without having to talk on the mic and just let the music do the talking kind of thing. So I ended up with this huge BPM book, and I must admit that was the thing that in the early days really helped me. Because I only ever got some Technics 1200s when I had the chance to play and practice on yours. I remember when you used to live in Wigan, and that was just brilliant. That for me, that was just, you know, I remember the setting you had, as Mike mentioned earlier. I was just like in awe. It was like, wow, I would give my right arm to have that, you know, that amazing mixer with a crossfader. I mean, crossfader was
Mass Supernova.
That was it. And it was like, you just didn't see crossfaders in those days. It was just like a completely alien thing. And I was just like, you know, I just absolutely adored it. You know, whenever you, I don't know, went out to the shops and let me have like half an hour, and I was like, oh,
well, you'd sometimes stay there while I went to work and get back and get the tapes and everything.
It was just like, it was like being at the altar for me, you know. It was a religious experience, really. And so, as I said, this BPM book enabled me to mix, and then I only got some Technics 1200s when I actually won the UK final in '86.
Oh, wow.
I actually got some 1200s finally, so that was like, you know, I could kind of put my BPM book down, so to speak. And there's one, I must admit, I must make a shout out to anybody. I know there's loads of old faces in here today, and it's just an amazing day for me. I don't know about you guys, but I lost my BPM book about 6-7 years ago, maybe more. And I'm just putting a general shout out. If anybody's got it hiding in a box somewhere in the loft, you know, maybe I left it at somebody's house or something, I will pay anything to get that book back, you know. But I lost it a few years ago, and it really, I was depressed for about 6 months.
Right.
I almost could, it was, because it's like, you know.
I've lost stuff, records stolen, depressing, really. But, you know, right, you were doing the normal residency, we say normal residency, here at the weekend was like a mixture of what was played on the jazz funk night, a mixture of what was played on the futurist scene, which was kind of into that new romantic area, and the pop stuff, or the pop dance, like the stuff that we wouldn't play on a specialist night, like Shalimar, Imagination, Michael Jackson, things like that. So it was, you were playing a wide berth of music within this, but then you know, you became, you started getting a few bookings for the all day. We put you on at the all day at Wigan Pier, I think. That was one of your first all days that was there. And then when I stopped DJing, which was the end of '83, you were the natural successor. Because I mean, the thing about Chad, that for me, you know, the time that I stopped, which was the end of '83, by this point we knew what was going on in the States. There were you know, kids cutting it up and doing all this stuff. Before that, we just heard it on the records, but now we could see it. There was enough video stuff to understand that. And from a personal point of view, I tried scratching. I did a little bit of primitive stuff and everything, but I understood that to really get involved with that, you needed to dedicate a lot of time to put yourself into that. And by that point, I was doing my radio mixes and I was using reel to reel and editing, and it was, my process was slowing down as opposed to the live thing. And what I could see within you was you had that time and you had that dedication, and you picked up on it. You'd see somebody doing something, or you might even see me doing something. You could pick that up really quickly and run with it and take it to another level. And so it was what you did was you were the natural progression on. You were taking this, like, as I say, a turntablist approach. Before, we didn't use that term then, but that's where it was going to. And so you took over at Legend, and I think that the scene at that point, there was a bit of a split because of the breakdancing. That changed. Breakdancing changed the dynamic of the club scene, because before that, when I played electro, it was everyone was into it, but come the summer of '83, when breakdancing kind of hit with a vengeance, it was like every time I played anything remotely electro, there was a ruck of guys, and there was challenging going on the dance floor, which initially was fantastic, and the visual aspect of it, and everybody loved it. But then, as the weeks go by, especially the girls, they're getting pissed off. The dancing space is being invaded, they can't get on the floor, there's this going on, and you could see the dynamic changing. That was one of the things that I was aware of when I came away from the situation. You stepped into that, and you became very much, you know, the start of that whole kind of hip-hop culture and what you were doing, you know, and the way that you were playing. So, you know, if you could talk to me more about that kind of period of time for you.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting period, as you say. I mean, I must admit, I was absolutely, I was really pleased to be offered the Legend thing and all that. But I must admit, it also was, I was kind of. You were like a hell of a hard act to follow, so to speak. You know, it was like at the same time I was kind of thinking, well, how am I going to kind of take over from Greg, who at the time, you know, you had a huge name on the scene, and it was I was like the new guy, and obviously people, as I said, people were very passionate in those days. So there was a lot of people who were kind of, you know, should we say, kind of Greg boys, you know, and it was like, who's this guy coming in, you know? So it was kind of, I had to try and win those guys over. And the thing I remember about Legends was things like you were saying before, the equipment and everything was just state of the art. But I remember some little thing, some little switch on the mixer board where it was almost like you have surround sound now.
The sound suite.
Yeah, it's like the sound suite thing where the sound started spinning around the speakers around the dance floor. And that just freaked me out.
I mean, there was stuff at Legend that now you just do not see it. I mean, it's hard to kind of describe something like Legend. That if you open that same club now, it will blow people's heads off. You don't see the lights on. They don't make clubs like that anymore. It's one of those.
Absolutely. I mean, I felt very honoured, you know, to take over the mantle from you. But also with that, I think it was, as I said, quite hard to follow. So I decided to try and eat my own path by following the kind of turntablism thing of it all, you know.
Which you excelled in completely. I mean, you had, you know, that kind of style and that showmanship to what you did. And you took that on. I mean, you later, you played at place, you played at the Hacienda for a period of time.
I played at the Hass. I remember actually at the Hass, when I was playing, I think I did the Saturday nights, I find it hard to remember things though, like the other guys. I was playing a Saturday nights, and I remember being up in the booth and playing stuff like J.M. Silk, Music is the King. Some of the really early kind of house records. I remember somebody kind of knocking on the DJ booth door, kind of, opening the hatch, and they were kind of going, "What are you playing this gay music for?" You know, people kind of completely against it, and it really was a kind of changeover period, you know, around that time. And I did feel at the Hacienda, it was. If I would have stayed on there, maybe I would have kind of took it a bit further. But the mixing things had started to happen about that time, you know, kind of 85, 86, 86, 85. Actually, there was the first mixing championship. It was held at the Hippodrome in London, and I remember going to that and seeing it and thinking to myself, "Man, I've got to enter this. I've just got to enter this." So the next year I entered it, and that's kind of when I left the Hacienda, because I started to actually get a lot of gigs abroad and stuff, so I had to free up my weekends.
That was when you won the UK mixing championship?
Yeah, that was when I won the UK.
And then the following year, which was 87, it was, you know, I was there at the Albert Hall, and you won the World Mixing Championship, which really kind of, you know, cemented.
Yeah, I mean, basically in 86, I got picked at the post by DJ Cheese, the USA competitor. And basically, from the next day till the mixing championships the next year, I was just practicing every single day, you know, because I was like, I mean, people, you know, people say second is nowhere. I mean, I felt absolutely like that. It was like so close, so far, you know, second is nothing. I had that real hunger going on, you know. It was like, I have to do that, I have to do that, you know. So I basically spent a whole year kind of practicing stuff in between doing gigs for the following year. And luckily I didn't have to enter it again from scratch, because they entered the champion from the previous year automatically into the competition, and DJ Cheese declined. So what actually happens is the runner-up gets the chance to stand in for him. So I kind of got the ticket that way. So I was like, yes, I've got to take this. It really has to be mine. I mean, it was really that. I think it's the strength of youth, maybe, or the stupidity of youth, or whatever you want to call it. You know, it was. I was absolutely one track. It was like I was so focused. It was like, I'm going to do that or I'm going to die. I don't care. It's that or nothing, you know. And so I was absolutely just eye on the bullseye, thinking, I'm going to get that. I'm going to get that. That's going to be mine. That's going to be mine. And it was just like what's the word? Obsessed, you know, complete obsessed maniac, really. But sometimes you have to do that to get to places you want to get to, you know. And it obviously worked, you know.
And it did, and you won it. And tonight, I mean, what we've asked you to do is, like, as a special thing, is to play from 10 till 11, because we've got like all the people in from Street Machine, people from Broken Glass, and you know, like the B-boy fraternity that are in attendance tonight, and you know, to kind of play some stuff from that kind of period of time that links into that. So it'll be good to see you back on that. I mean, I don't know what kind of stuff you're playing these days, but it'd be good to see you play.
Oh well, I mean, nowadays, I mean, I do the laptop thing. I use Ableton Live on a laptop. I use Tractor. I use CDs, I use vinyl, I use the whole lot now, you know, really. I thought I'd leave it old school for tonight, though.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely just keep it old school. It's been a pleasure, Chad, and we'll see you, DJing.
Thank you.